7:15.
Okay. Are you there, Mr. Charlie?
Are you there, laddie?
Can't spray him. Oh, there he goes.
What?
Text. Look at.
Here goes the text. We are live.
Well, good evening. We are very happy to be playing our Halloween Samhain Celtic New Year show for Folknet tonight. This will be the first one of the season, and we hope to share some interesting and fun and hopefully healing stuff with you tonight. We're February Sky. I'm Susan Urban. That's Phil Cooper over there.
We are very glad to be here. This is our show that was supposed to be in March that was postponed. We thought, oh, good, Samhain and Halloween show. We're going to start with a tune that I made up called Dave Gordon's Journey to Newgrange. Dave Gordon was a friend of ours from Chicago who passed away in 2004. And anyway, Newgrange was where it was a mound in Ireland that predates.
Still is, actually.
It predates Stonehenge, the pyramids, and the Great Wall of China. And it's where they honored the people who passed away in the previous year, because when they found the site, they had found ashes and bone. So we called this tune Dave Gordon's Journey to Newgrange. And to get an idea of who Dave Gordon was, he sang a lot of novelty Scottish songs on the Scottish circuit in Chicago in the late 90s and early 2000s. He was your go-to guy for Donald Waterhouse. And so to get an idea of who he was, you got to remember Murphy's died, and his widow, who can squeeze a nickel until the buffalo screams, is wanting to get the lowest price obituary that the papers will allow her. And so the newspaper editor is saying, Mrs. Murphy, I can get you 5 words for $5.
5 words for $5. Seems a bit dear. You sure you can't do anything lesser?
I'm afraid that's our grieving widow's rate.
Well,
what are you going to say?
Suppose I must, because what would the neighbors say if I didn't?
Well, your 5 words.
Murphy's dead.
Okay, you still have 3 words left.
Are you certain that you can't do 2 words for $2?
No, that's our rate, so...
Very well then. Murphy's dead. Car for sale.
And this is how you need to think of Dave Gordon. So that's our tune, Dave Gordon's Journey to Newgrange. We played it for his significant other, and she said that they had actually been to Newgrange, so Dave would have appreciated the title. And now we're going to sing a song by our friend Heidi Muller.
Yes, this song was inspired by Heidi's visiting Poland, and around the time of All Hallows Eve, and seeing people out in the graveyards bringing candles to light the way back for their dead loved ones. This is the time of the year, of course, when it is said that the souls of the dead are closer. The veil is thinner between the dead and the living. And Heidi wrote this to commemorate that time-honored observance.
Seasons turn as Earth is spinning round. Radiance burns the summer to the ground. Somewhere across the sea, a candle in the night recalls the memory of dancing in the light. Shutters close against the pressing wind. Wisdom knows it's wiser to stay in. Only the bravest and the lovers who believe will venture through the dark on this most hallowed eve. Trembling hearts and souls unseen, drawn to the flame. Once a year we'll gather here, breathing their names. Those who live bring offerings of gifts. They would give their love till darkness lifts. Those on the other side long to touch their skin, or to feel a gentle kiss when the veil is thin. Trembling hearts and souls unseen, drawn to the flame. Once a year we'll gather here, breathing their names. Centuries pass and still we mark the day. Though through the glass we dimly see our way. For saints and family, for all we love and grieve, we keep the fires lit every Hallows Eve. The way February Sky works is I find songs like the Heidi Muller song. Actually, Susan and I both found it, but She is the one with songwriter's disease, which is, of course, incurable and terminal. And we sort of trade these off. And so she will tell you now about this ghost story that takes place in the UP, our neck of the woods.
Yes, well, there's a stretch of highway called Highway 2 in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan that goes from St. Ignace, which is at the Straits of Mackinac, about 40 miles west to a little town called Nobbinway, and just an amazingly lovely stretch of road, all sorts of beautiful white sandy beaches and cliffs going down to the water. And I always thought that stretch of road was haunted, maybe by things that were there before people. That's actually true, but that's another song. And this one got started when I was having breakfast one morning in a diner smack in the middle of that 40-mile stretch, and pulled out of the parking lot and saw one of those signs by the side of the road, or a cross actually, not a sign, a white cross that's often used to mark the place where someone has died in a car accident. And this one happened to be right in front of a bar. And as I drove the other 20 miles to Nobbinway, this story came to me and eventually turned itself into a song. And first I thought I made it up, but when we moved up here and we either sang the song or told people about it, they said, "Oh yeah, that girl in the car." So sometimes you really don't know what the heck you're tapping into when you go to write a song. Phil says this is my child ballads meets Stephen King number.
That's right.
And it does have some very dark humor in it for those of you who are into that. There's 40 miles of highway 2 up in the old UP. They run beside Lake Michigan, that restless inland sea. They're haunted by a girl who died when she was young and fair. Her age no more than sweet 16. And Marie Sinclair. The year was 57 in the balmy month of May,
And Marie was cruising in her daddy's Chevrolet.
her boyfriend wore a suit of black.
She
just say be careful when you're drinking late at night. If you're driving in the dark between the straits and Nobbin Way, be sure you're stone cold sober if you love the light of day. If not, the smiling blue-eyed ghost of Anne Marie St. Clair may send you to your maker in her 56th bed.
Well, we're going to sing a Scottish song now, after checking with a word from our sponsor. We are live, we are muted, we are good. Okay. I think that means they might have missed the first joke, but oh well. We're planning to do another Halloween show on October 31st. We're probably not going to do exactly the same things we're doing here, but there's a good chance that joke will be back. Anyway, this is a song from Scotland that's traditional and mentions Halloween without being 90 verses long and Tam Lin. So it's called My Faithful Johnny.
And it was interesting because we played the song for a festival a few years back, and a gentleman came up to us afterwards and said how much he liked that song about the soldier. And it doesn't say anything about a soldier in it. So it just goes to show you people hear different things when they hear the same song.
Yeah, I have been hearing this song for like 40-some years and finally realized Faithful Johnny's on the other side of the veil. But anyway, this mentions Halloween without being real long, and dates back to when we were doing house concerts in St. Charles, and always felt uncomfortable asking people for money to hear us play in our own house, so we'd always ask other artists to come and join us. So we had groups like 4 Shillings Short and Lee Murdoch and Mustard's Retreat and Bob and Mickey Holdsworth sort of share house space and concerts with us, and they were always a lot of fun to do. So anyway, this is Faithful Johnny. When will you come again, my faithful Johnny? When will you come again, my sweet and bonny? When the corn is gathered, when the leaves are withered, I will come again, my sweet and bonny. I will come again. And winter's winds may blow, my faithful Johnny, When will you come again, my faithful Johnny? When will you come again, my sweet and Bonnie? When the corn is gathered, when the leaves are withered, I will come again, my sweet and Bonnie. I will come again. This show gets too slick for you, let us know. This is an interesting experiment. I understand this is the first live show that Folknet has done, and it's always an adventure, and we really appreciate Charlie Mossbrook's help and advice on the sound check, and hopefully we got it the best we could. So if there's any playing glitches, that's of course on our part. Anyway, we really appreciate you all tuning in. And next song is actually the scariest song Susan has ever written, and it's gotten me to do some things that fans of mine from years ago would never think I would do.
Yes, this one got started from two things.
Basically, when Susan first moved out to our house in 2009 in St. Charles, she was always getting lost because they have all these backcountry roads and it's hard to find things. And one of the times that she got lost, she passed a house that was basically classic 1970s gaudy.
Well, one of those god-awful 1970s contemporary houses falling apart in the midst of a dark clearing and clearly haunted. And, well, we were really busy at that time and always wanted to go back and check the house out, not on Halloween like the person in this song. I was not that dumb, but I always wanted to do that, and never happened. And one day I drove past and there was the house that had been burned to the ground and there was nothing standing but the chimney, so I had to make it into a song. A further bit of inspiration for this was when we went to the wedding of the daughter of a friend of ours, and they had a disc jockey for the wedding reception and instead of a live band, and these kids who weren't even born when this music was first played, this disco music, were singing along to all the words of all the songs. So if that isn't enough to scare you, I don't know what is.
And think of all the tacky 70s fashions that have come and gone.
Yes, anybody remember conversation pits? Those were the sectional sofas where the two sections faced one another so people could talk to one another while facing each other.
It's where they kept the bong.
Yes.
I read about those.
Yes. While driving down a country road in western Illinois, a house of strange proportions I did spy. It had 6 roofs with oddly slanting angles all around, and many dirty windows, each a different shape and size. Diagonal wood siding in a peeling harvest gold, stone chimney fallen, shingles cracked and torn. All marked this as a relic of the 1970s. I knew the place was haunted just as sure as I was born. At midnight of that Halloween, I went to check it out. Of phantom dancing queens, I had no fear. Young and sweet, only 17. A sign said no trespassing, as I blithely passed it by. I thought I caught the fleeting sound of ABBA in my ears, having the time of her life. When I drew near the house, the moon came out as bright as day. I caught my breath, my steps began to flag. The paint was fresh, the windows clear, and through them I could see a flock of dancers twirling on a rug of orange shag. And they sang with the record blasting from the console stereo. Ha, 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 staying alive, staying alive. Ha, 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 staying alive. The guys were dressed in leisure suits, the girls in halter tops, in hues that never came from nature's hand, gyrating round the edges of the conversation pit, bell-bottom trousers swirling to the rhythm of the band, and their orgiastic voices rang in off-key harmony. I've got all my life to live, I've got all my love to give, and I'll survive, I will survive, I will survive. At last they were exhausted, and they settled in the pit. Then each one toppled over with a thud, for they'd been sipping Harvey Wallbangers around the bong. The vodka had been poisoned by a mob boss out for blood. I ran from that place screaming in the first gray light of dawn. To ne'er return again was what I swore. But every wedding I attend, they play those disco songs. I'm haunted by the 70s for now and evermore. Ha, 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 ha. Staying alive, staying alive. Ha, 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 ha. Staying alive, alive. Oh, I could hear all you 70s folks singing along out there.
Yeah, not everything involving Halloween is dreadful.
Well,
Anyway,
that's pretty dreadful.
well, yeah, but this song that we're about to do was written by a man named Bob Pegg from Britain. He was part of an electric folk band called Mr. Fox, one of the bands that came up around the time of Steel Eye Span and Fairport Convention, but didn't quite get the notoriety. And this is a song about a hiker that accidentally dies in the woods, and about how your spirit remains in places even after you're gone. It's called The Hanged Man. And anyway, it's one of my favorite Bob Pegg songs. He's written quite a few that are very good.
And of course, as a typical Halloween song should be, it's from the point of view of the dead guy.
Yes. When I was a young man, I used to dress so neat. Many hearts beat faster as I walked down the street. And as I grew older, the women had their fill, till the only heart that beat was mine as I came down the hill. Walk in a valley that never saw the sun, step by the stones where the icy waters run, stand in a church where the village choir once sang, and stroll along the pathway where the dead man used to hang. You take the road we took before, to the one by the rocks where the river leaves the moon. I'll take the road where the hill and forest meet, where the fallen flowers hide the stones and wait to trip your feet. The trees of the forest, the rocks on the ground, saw me swing my haversack as I raced gaily down. The badger in the bushes, the fox in his lair, heard me give a whoop and cry as I fell through the air. Walk in a valley that never saw the sun, step by the stones where the icy waters run, stand in a church where the village choir once sang, and stroll along the pathway where the dead man used to hang. Waking in the forest beneath a spreading pine, I saw my buddy hanging like a shirt upon the line. Vines gripped up my fingers where they had come to rest, and in my open mouth the wild beasts came to build their nest. Many ages later, the village people came, took me from my resting place and tied up my remains. In an old sheep blanket, they bore me down the hill. My corpse is in a far-off grave, but I remain here still. Walk in a valley that never saw the sun, step by the stones where the icy waters run, stand in a church where the village choir once sang, and stroll along the pathway where the dead man used to hang. Well, speaking of songs where Susan has written them, but it's like her version of the child ballads meet Stephen King. Well, this song, it's the child ballads meet
The Untouchables.
the Untouchables.
Now, being a fan of tragic songs, I was listening to Richard Thompson's 1952 Vincent Black Lightning. I was on my way up to the cabin in the UP, you didn't live here then, and listening to the song and crossed the border into the UP, and time to put the tape away, and yes, was a tape back then, late 90s, and this story started to come to me, and the song was essentially complete by the time I reached the cabin 4 hours later. All I had to do was write it down, and the melody was in my head, so I had to figure that out. I've never written any other song like that before or since. And it's set in Chicago in the 1920s. I thought when I first started to write it that it was a contemporary song, but no. And some of the places, the Cleveland folk, if they're listening in, may not know where these are. Graceland is the big Chicago cemetery where many of Chicago's dignitaries rest in peace or not, as the case may be. And Uptown is a neighborhood that's famous for its beautiful old gray stone mansions. And it went from a rich people's neighborhood to a slum to a mega rich people's neighborhood. No one can afford to live there now. And so that's a little bit of the history behind the song for you. We tune because we care. We have both developed the art of telling stories while we're tuning. Thank heavens. You can be thankful for that, because playing this long a song out of tune wouldn't be fun. Let's start. Called Anna and Tim. The Greystone was a showplace with treasures rich and fine.
that she would sing.
Though she was more than twice his age, Jim couldn't keep away. And soon the Greystone Mansion saw young Jim there every day. Though Anna's nights were busy, still she found the time for him. He'd love her in the evening when the lights began to dim.
She said, "You keep your money, boy. There's others who can pay. You'll need it for your college." That was all she had to say.
She told him, "I remember back when I was young and green. I had to make it on my own since I was just 14. I'm proud of all I have because I've earned it free and clear. The mobsters, they all hate me. For them, I have no fear. They swear they'll bring their Tommy guns and cut me down one day. So just you watch your back, boy." That was all that she could say. One early winter evening, when the snow was falling hard, Tim found the Greystone empty, so he looked out in the yard. There Anna lay, her lifeblood draining out into the snow. He tried to stop the bleeding, but she told him, "Darling, no.
It's much too late already. Kiss my lips and say adieu. There's no one else who's loved me, boy, in all this world but you."
He buried her in Graceland. There was no one else around. He left a dozen blood-red roses on the frozen ground. Next day, her lawyer called and said she left it all to you. The house, the cars, the furniture, and lots of money too. Don't know why she did it, but it's sure your lucky day. And Tim just stood there weeping. There was nothing he could say. Tim grew up and he got married. The babies numbered 3. He raised them in the house where Anna's business used to be. And in the early evening, Tim would watch his children play upon the very spot where Anna died that winter's day.
The years went by, the block went bad. The kids said, "Move away.
This old
House means a lot to me." That was all that he would say.
There's a double plot in Graceland over where the L trains roll. And stone is carved in Anna, just her name and nothing more. The other's marked with Tim and shows his dates of death and birth. And now the star-crossed lovers sleep together in the earth.
If there's a place beyond this world where lovers meet, I pray
Their souls are
united
reunited
in some new and brighter day.
and their love will live forever. Now there's nothing more to say.
Send you on a mental vacation after that. This is a tune I made up. Mozart's a composer. I make up tunes. This tune.
Mozart couldn't pick like him.
Anyway, I modeled this after 13th century Italian dance music. And since you have to name a tune something, we decided to name it. I've been naming tunes after our cats. And so this is called Belmont's Blanket. Belmont is no longer with us, which is why we're playing it tonight.
Oh, we miss him so. He was unique.
So
I think he was a failed savanna cat.
Yes.
The complications of being a part wild animal in a domestic setting bring with it.
So Belmont's Blanket. Anyway, Belmont's Blanket. And next we're actually going to do a real child ballad because basically we know them. This started out in Britain as a song called The Demon Lover, and it got adjusted. A lot of supernatural things got left out when they came to this country, but it's called The House Carpenter here. And so we're going to sing this now.
And I think Phil said he cobbled together the tune from a number of different sources, and
the verses too.
Yep. And so it isn't anybody's specific version; it's just ours.
We've enjoyed doing this at ballad workshops throughout the Midwest and Kentucky and places like that.
Some versions of the song, the young lady who made the mistake is sent to hell. We thought that was a little harsh, so we just drowned her.
Well met, cried an old true love. Well met, cried he, for I have returned from the salt, salt sea, and it's all for the love of thee. Well, I could have married a king's daughter dear, and she would have married me, but I did forsake her crowns of gold, and it's all for the love of thee. Well, if you could have married a king's daughter there, I'm sure you are to blame, for I have married the house carpenter, and I'm sure he's a fine young man. would you forsake your house carpenter and come along with me? I'll take you where the grass grows green on the banks of Italy. If I should forsake my house carpenter and come along with thee, what have you got to maintain me on, to keep me from slavery? I have 7 ships all on dry land and 7 more on the sea, and I'll give you the best of them and keep the worst for me. She picked up her dear little babe and kisses gave him 3. Oh, stay at home, my sweet little babe, and keep your papa company. She had not been sailing all about 2 weeks. I'm sure that it was not 3 when this fair maid she began for to weep, and she wept most bitterly. Well, are you weeping for your silver or gold, or all of your wealth in store? Or are you weeping for your house carpenter that you're never gonna see anymore? Well, I am not weeping for my own true love, nor all of my wealth in store, but I am weeping for my sweet little babe that I'm never gonna see anymore. They had not been sailing all about 3 weeks. I'm sure that it was not 4 when the ship sprang a leak in the bottom and she sank, never to rise anymore. Well met, cried an old true love. Well met, cried she, for I am a drowning in the salt, salt sea, and it's all for the love of thee. Well, up where we live in Trout Lake, we have a bar a couple of doors down from us by which all the hamburgers in the world are measured as a standard. We like those, and basically the owner of the bar is a friend of ours, and she used to take care of our cats. And they have a burn barrel behind the bar, and she had always said, you can burn your cardboard and such things there rather than having to pay somebody to take them off your hands. And thus comes this song, which basically it's the story of the song, and I'm not going to be a spoiler.
All right, well, as I redo my strap on my 12 strings so that it doesn't fall down to the ground and get smushed, I will tell you that this is the song in the set that we don't know. It just got written recently, and we have very little sympathy for the funeral industry. We think that much of the people doing stuff are unscrupulous and try to get people to spend money that they really can't afford on funerals, playing on their guilt and grief. And we don't think that's right. And so the song finally got written for a UU service on dealing with the many different things that we've had to cope with during this time of the pandemic, and hopefully with a little bit of levity. We live up in the frozen north in a tiny UP town. Most everybody's broke up here, few jobs are to be found. The bar next door has got a burn barrel for torching all their trash. They don't pay for garbage pickup, and that saves those folks some cash. One night when we were watching some commercials on TV, a dire warning came from some insurance company. They said a funeral could cost us $30,000 in bread. My dear sweetie turned and looked me in the eye, and then he said, throw me in that burn barrel when I die. Let my ashes blow in a beautiful snow against that northern sky. And the neighbors will be saying, man, he sure is one hot guy. So throw me in that burn barrel when I die. I said that this was fine with me, but it had to go both ways. No caskets, and no funeral home, no priest to come and pray. However, I would like a bit of fancy fanfare when I go. No, it will not cost much money, dear. Just wanted you to know. Throw me in that burn barrel when I croak. You could toss some fireworks in there with a nice thick log of oak, and the folks will say she went out with a bang in a cloud of smoke. So throw me in that burn barrel when I croak. Our Facebook friends can honor us. No money need be spent to help ensure the poor surviving spouse can pay the rent. And if the COVID time is past, a sing around could not be wrong. But if not, they all can get on Zoom and sing our favorite song. So throw us in that burn barrel when we're gone. They can watch our ashes mix with snow in a rosy UP dawn. And until we soar above the clouds, we'll keep on singing songs. But throw us in that burn barrel when we're gone. Throw me in that burn barrel. Throw me in that old burn barrel. Throw me in that burn barrel when I die.
Another big Celtic tradition is, of course, songs about shape-shifting. So we're going to sing a classic, another child ballad, a classic shape-shifting one about people who turn into seals and back. They're called silkies in Scotland. And you have to realize in this version that the child is a 7-year-old that the silky is picking up after the first instrumental break. So some time elapses. You know, with ballads, you have to listen to them like they're movies. And so 7 years pass. That's about the age of kids being apprenticed back then. The thing about seal people is they had the gift of prophecy to foretell the future.
Yes, and of course, because it was Scottish, it was never good. And also because it was Scottish, it would always come true. And that's typical of this song. And this is not the melody that Judy Collins and Joan Baez used for this classic ballad.
Cable malfunction.
Oh no.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
An earthly nurse sits and sings, and I she sings by Lily Wayne. Oh, little know I my babe's father, far less the land where he dwells in. For he came one night to her bed feet, and a grimly guessed, I'm sure 'twas he, saying, here am I, thy babe's father, although I be not comely. I am a man upon the land, I am a silk beyond the sea, and when I'm far and far from land, my home it is in Soostery. Oh, and alas, this lady cried, such a weary fate was laid on me, that a man should come to my bed for, and know to have a babe with me. And he has ta'en a purse of gold, and counted it down all by her knee, saying, give to me my bonny young son, and take thee up thy nurse's fee. For it shall come to pass on a summer's day, when the sun shines bright on every stone, I'll come and fetch my bonny young son, to teach him how to swim the foam, and ye shall marry a gunner good, and a gunner good I'm sure he'll be. But the very first shot that there he shoots will kill both your young son and me. And it came to pass on a summer's day, when the sun shone bright on every stone, he's come to fetch his bonny young son, to teach him how to swim the fawn. And she has married a gunner good, and a gunner good, I'm sure 'twas he. And he has shot her bonny young son, likewise the Silky of Salisbury. So the great Silky. We're going to play one more song. This was a request from one of your fellow Folknet people, our dear friend Joanne Lasig. And this was written by our friend Charlie Madigan about the custom of memento mori, which was taking pictures of the guest of honor at a funeral.
And not as morbid as it sounds, because photography was very new at the time and expensive, and ordinary people, well, of course nobody could fire off photos from their smartphones like we do now, but that might be the only picture they'd ever get of someone. Also, distances were long, no airplanes, trains and stagecoaches were slow, and people often couldn't get to a funeral in time, so that was the only image that they would have of that person. And
quite often when a child died, they would pose the bodies as if they were playing.
And they would paint the eyes back on, sometimes.
Thus the name of the song, Written in Our Eyes. And it was also modeled after a former Speaker of the House who once said that the quality of life was better in the 18th and 19th centuries, and one wonders for whom. But and as Charlie said, that man was a history major and should have known better. But anyway, Written in Our Eyes, and we'd like to thank Folknet for having us, and all of you for watching. So thank you all so much, and we hope to see you live sometime in the future. Capo malfunction.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8.
Did you think our lives were better? Did you think we had no pain? Did you think we came from happy times? Well, think your thoughts again. There are myths and there are legends, there are fables, there are lies. The truest stories written in our eyes. Have you ever raised a garden of bright flowers in the spring, and watched your roses wither in the heat that summer brings? Have you ever raised a family and watched your flowers die? The truest stories written in our eyes. Did you think our lives were better? Did you think we had no pain? Did you think we came from happy times? Well, think your thoughts again. There are myths and there are legends, there are fables, there are lies. The truest stories written in our eyes. Have you ever been left lonely by a lover in the night? Have you shivered in the darkness while you wait for morning's light? Have your babies not been hungry? Have you never heard them cry? The truest stories written in our eyes. Did you think our lives were better? Did you think we had no pain? Did you think we came from happy times? Well, think your thoughts again. There are myths and there are legends, there are fables, there are lies. The truest stories written in our eyes. Have you ever read? Have you ever heard the voices just to find no one is there? Have you turned to face a whisper in a room that's cold and bare? Have you ever longed for family, for comfort at your side? The truest stories written in our eyes. Did you think our lives were better? Did you think we had no pain? Did you think we came from happy times? Well, think your thoughts again. There are myths and there are legends, there are fables, there are lies. The truest stories written in our eyes. There are myths and there are legends, there are fables, there are lies. The truest stories written in our eyes. That last verse, my apologies. Have you ever heard the voices just to find no one is there? Have you turned to face a whisper in a room that's cold and bare? Have you ever longed for family, for comfort at your side? The truest stories written in our eyes. That's the verse that ties in with Samhain and Halloween, so I wanted you to get the right words. Thank you all so much. We're February Sky from Trout Lake, Michigan, and happy Halloween.
Happy Celtic New Year, blessed Samhain, and blessed be.